All right, let's just jump right in. We're all taught this one big idea that more choice is always a good thing. More options means more freedom, and that freedom is supposed to make us happier, right? Well, today we're going to poke some holes in that idea. We're diving deep into a concept called the paradox of choice. Okay, tell me if this sounds familiar. It's been a long day. You finally crash on the couch, you fire up Netflix, and what happens? You scroll, and you scroll, and you just keep scrolling. You're hit with this endless wall of things to watch, and after like an hour, you just give up and put on that one show you've already seen a dozen times. If you're nodding along right now, you should know it's not you. This is a totally universal feeling in our world of infinite choice. The thing is, this idea is baked into everything. The more breakfast cereals in the aisle, the more vacation spots to choose from, the more people on a dating app, the happier we should be. But what if that basic assumption isn't just a little off? What if it's completely backwards? What if all of this choice is actually making us more stressed, less satisfied, and, believe it or not, less free? So to really get this, we've got to look at a brilliant and honestly kind of simple study. It's famously known as the JAM experiment. And what it found perfectly explains how our brains just completely freeze up when faced with too many options. Okay, so picture this. Researchers go to a gourmet food store and they set up a little table to let people sample some high-quality jams. On the first day, they go all out. They create this huge, beautiful display with a massive variety of flavors. Get this, 24 different flavors of jam. I'm talking everything from the classics like strawberry to some really exotic stuff like kiwi lime. The table was just overflowing with options, a beautiful mountain of choice. And look, the huge display, it worked, kinda. It definitely got people's attention. Big crowds were stopping by, tasting the different jams. You'd think, with all that buzz, they'd be selling jam like crazy. But when they tallied up the sales at the end of the day, they found something, well, pretty shocking. So out of everyone who stopped and sampled from those 24 options, a tiny 3% actually bought a jar. Just 3%. People were interested, for sure, but in the end, they just walked away. All right, so the next day, the researchers switched things up completely. They ditched the overwhelming display and put out a much smaller, more manageable selection. Just 6 flavors, a simple, clean, easy-to-process choice. Now, fewer people actually stopped at the table this time around, but for the ones who did, something incredible happened. Sales absolutely skyrocketed. With a much smaller selection, people weren't just browsing, they were actually buying. The choice was easier, it was less intimidating, and the result was a huge spike in sales. I mean, look at this. The difference is just wild. When faced with 24 jams, only 3% bought one. But with just 6 jams, 30% of people made a purchase. That is a 10 times increase. The big takeaway here is that less choice actually led to more action. And that right there is the paradox of choice in a nutshell. Okay, so what in the world is happening in our brains here? Why does this abundance of options, something that seems so great on the surface, actually cause our brains to kind of short circuit? Let's break down the psychological traps that are at play. So the first and most common trap is something called analysis paralysis. And it's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. Your brain is trying to weigh the pros and cons of every single option. And when there are too many, the gears just jam. You get completely stuck. It ends up feeling way easier and honestly safer to just choose nothing at all. But okay, let's say you actually manage to fight through that paralysis and you make a choice. You're still not out of the woods. Now you have to deal with opportunity cost. The more options you had, the more you're haunted by the ghosts of the choices you didn't make. You're enjoying your strawberry jam, but in the back of your mind, you're thinking, I wonder if the raspberry was better. Or what about the apricot? This constant what-if game just chips away at how happy you are with the choice you actually made. And this brings us to what might be the worst trap of all, self-blame. Think about it. If a store only has 2 styles of jeans and neither fits you perfectly, you blame the store. Ugh, this place has a terrible selection. But if a store has 50 different styles and the one you pick is imperfect, who do you blame? You blame yourself. You start thinking, what's wrong with me? With all these choices, I must have picked the wrong one. The huge number of options shifts all the responsibility onto you, so any little imperfection feels like a personal failure. Now, what's interesting is that not all of us get hit by this in the same way. Psychologists have figured out that there are basically 2 types of decision makers: So as I'm describing them, I want you to ask yourself, which one sounds more like you? First up, you've got the maximizer. This is the person who has to find the absolute number one best possible option. They're the ones reading 500 reviews before buying a toaster. And yeah, they might end up with a great result, but they're often super stressed and filled with regret along the way. Then you have the satisficer. A satisficer has a set of criteria for good enough. As soon as they find something that meets that standard, the search is over. They pick it and they move on. And can you guess which one is consistently happier with their decisions? Yeah, it's the satisficer, every single time. And you see this everywhere. Just think about modern dating for a second. Dating apps give us what feels like an infinite supply of potential partners. This can turn all of us into maximizers, right? We're just constantly swiping, always thinking there might be a better flavor just one more profile away. We end up treating people like they're just disposable jams in a giant supermarket, and that makes it incredibly hard to actually commit to someone and feel happy about it. Okay, so we get the problem. It's a real thing. But what do we do about it? How can we possibly fight back and get our sanity back in a world that just won't stop throwing a million choices at us? Well, the solution, the answer, is to actually learn how to think like a satisficer, to embrace the power of good enough. So here's a super simple two-step formula you can literally start using today. First, set your own limits. You can't control how many options are out there, but you can control how many you actually look at. If you're booking a flight, decide beforehand, I'm only going to check 3 websites. That's it. And second, and this is the big one, you've got to change your goal. Stop hunting for the best. It's like a mythical creature. It'll lead you on a chase that never ends and just makes you miserable. Instead, figure out what good enough looks like for you, and the second you find it, you pull the trigger. Because at the end of the day, true freedom isn't about having a million choices. True freedom is the ability to make a choice, feel good about it, and then move on with your life. By limiting our own options and learning to embrace good enough, we don't lose our freedom. We actually get it back. We get back our time, we get back our peace of mind, and we get back our happiness. The real question isn't which of the 24 jams to pick. It's having the wisdom to walk over to the table with only 6.